integrated MSc student from Amrita School of Arts and Science. She has attended OFCM Camp 2020, follow-up OFCM, MDTS 2021 follow-up course. Our topic for today is Cauchy completeness of R. So Anaga, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. The theorem that I am about to discuss today is the Cauchy completeness of R. Let us begin by what is a convergent sequence. We have already learned what xn converges to x means. If you give me an epsilon, then I'll be able to find a natural number n such that for every k greater than or equal to n, xk will lie in this interval x minus epsilon, x plus epsilon. So what does that mean? For large enough k, xk will be close to x. Now suppose I take two elements of the sequence xn and xm, where n and m are very large. Then how close will xn and xm be? We know that xn is close to xm. And we know that we know that xn is close to x and xm is close to x. So can we say something about the closeness of xn and xm? Suppose you have three persons A, B, and C, and if A and B are close friends, and B and C are also close friends, then what happens? After a point of time, A and C will also become friends. Similarly, after a stage, xn and xm will also come close to each other. Now you have an intuitive idea of this concept. So let's try to prove this. What is it that we have to prove? We are trying to show the closeness of xn and xm. And how do you estimate that? By mod xn minus xn. So that is what we are going to find. What is mod xn minus xn? So I'm starting with an epsilon. I know that the sequence is convergent. So for every k greater than or equal to n, mod xk minus x will be less than epsilon by 2. Since it is true for every epsilon, it will also be true for every epsilon by 2. Now I take two numbers n and m very large. To be precise, greater than or equal to n. Then what will be mod xn minus xn? I know how to estimate mod xn minus x and mod xm minus x. So from that, how will I estimate mod xn minus xm? We can use the Curry-Lift trick. In triangle inequality, we can write this as mod xn minus x plus mod x minus xm. Then what does that mean? We can write this as less than or equal to mod xn minus x plus mod x minus xm. We know that both of these are less than epsilon by 2. Why? Because n is greater than or equal to n and m is also greater than or equal to n. So this entire thing becomes less than epsilon. So what have we just proved? If I have a convergent sequence, then you give me an epsilon, I'll find an n such that for every m and n greater than or equal to n, mod xn minus xn will be less than epsilon. Now look at this statement. I'm going to name these kind of sequences. I'll give them a special name. I'm going to call them as Cauchy sequences. So what does xn is Cauchy means? For every epsilon greater than 0, I'll be able to find an n such that for all mn greater than or equal to n, mod xn minus xn is less than epsilon. And one more thing, whenever I say xn, I mean a sequence in R. So what have we just proved? We have shown that if xn is convergent, that property is true. And we have called that property to be Cauchy sequences. So we have just proved that if xn is convergent, then xn is Cauchy. So look at this statement. What is the natural question that comes to your mind whenever you see a statement like this? Is the converse true? What is the converse? If xn is Cauchy, then xn is convergent. Is that statement true? It happens so that that statement is true. And this is what we call the Cauchy completeness of R. Given a real sequence xn, it is Cauchy if and only if it is convergent. So we have proved one part. Which one was the part that we just proved? If Xn is convergent, then it is Cauchy. Now we have to prove that if Xn is Cauchy, then it is convergent. So which one do you think was easy? The first one would be easy because there we just had to work within the data. We had Xn, Xm, X. We just had to find the distance between Xn and Xm. But here the case is different. I need to show that Xn is convergent. How can I show that a sequence is convergent? I need to find a real number X such that Xn converges to X. So now my job is to find this X. So let's start with what we have. I know that Xn is Cauchy. So after a stage n, mod Xn minus Xm will be less than epsilon. I know this to be true. So I'm fixing an n so that this statement will be true. Now, look at this. This is true for every m and n greater than or equal to n. So what if I take m equal to n in particular? Will that create any problem? No, because m can also be equal to n. So I'm supposing m equal to n. So how can I rewrite that statement? For every n greater than or equal to n, mod xn minus xn will be less than epsilon. What does this mean? You give me an n greater than or equal to n, then xn will lie within this interval xn minus epsilon and xn plus epsilon. Now, I'm giving you a k such that xk lies here. So what does that mean? Xk will be greater than or equal to xn plus epsilon. Can you conclude something about k? I have said that if a number is greater than or equal to n, then it will be less than xn plus epsilon. And now I have given you an xk, which is greater than xn plus epsilon. So what does that mean? K is less than n. It's obvious, right? You can also try to prove it using contradiction. Suppose you assume k is greater than or equal to n, then you'll arrive at a contradiction to the law of trichotomy. So there are two things that I've just shown. What was the first thing? If k is greater than or equal to n, then xn is in this interval. That means xn minus epsilon will be less than xn. And the second thing that I've shown is if xk is to the right of xn plus epsilon, that is if it is greater than xn plus epsilon, then k will be less than n. What is the minimum value that k can take? 1. And it is also less than n. So that means k can take only finitely many values. 1, 2, 3, etc. up to n minus 1. So keep these two facts in mind. We'll need it for the rest of the proof. Now to the LUB property. We know the basic things about upper bound and all. So suppose I take a non-empty subset A. How can I say alpha is an upper bound of A? If for every x in A, x is less than or equal to alpha. So what do I mean when I say alpha is not an upper bound of the set A? There will exist an x such that x is greater than alpha. Third thing, what does it mean to say that alpha is an LUB of A? If beta is an upper bound, then alpha will be less than or equal to beta. So we'll need these things in our proof. Next. I'm assuming that xn is convergent. And you know why I do that? I need to prove that xn converges to x. So in order to prove something, this is an idea that we use. We first suppose that that statement is true and we try to work backwards. So in that way, we can see what happens if that statement is true. What does it mean to say that xn is convergent? After a certain stage k, xk will be within this interval L minus epsilon, L plus epsilon. So now I'm taking a set, an open interval minus infinity to L. Can you guess what will be the least upper bound of the set? I'm taking open minus infinity to L. The least upper bound of the set will be L. You know that, right? So how can I represent minus infinity to L as? I can write it as set of all x belonging to R such that x is less than L. So its least upper bound is L. Now I know something about L minus epsilon and L. What is that? L minus epsilon will always be less than L. I'm taking epsilon greater than 0. So L minus epsilon will always be less than L. So if I take my set as set of all L minus epsilon with epsilon greater than 0, what will the LUB of that set be? It will be L, right? Now, why am I doing all this? What is my L here? My L is the point to where xn converges. L is the limit of xn. And my job is to find what exactly this L is. So since xn converges to L, what does that mean? There has to be a relation between xn and L. I'm going to find what that relation is. Suppose xn converges to L. I know that xk will belong to this interval L minus epsilon to L plus epsilon for large enough k. That is, xk will be greater than L minus epsilon. And how many such k are there? There are infinitely many k, because for every k greater than or equal to n, this is true. That means for infinitely many k, xk is greater than L minus epsilon. You should note that I said infinitely many k, not infinitely many xk. Can you guess why? Because all the terms need not be different. Suppose I take a constant sequence xn equal to 1, then do I have infinitely many values for xk? No, all the values are 1. That is why I took for infinitely many k. The index can be infinite. I've seen that there are infinitely many k with xk greater than L minus epsilon. So this is a property of L minus epsilon. And now you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to construct a set. So I'll construct a set in such a way that xn should converge to the least upper bound of that set. So from these, can you identify what my set will be? This is my set. I'll take all the elements in R such that infinitely many terms of the sequence should be greater than that number. That is why we did all these least upper bound things to identify the set. This is the most important part of the proof because it is from this set that we get the value of our L. Now, what should I prove? I need to prove that Xn converges to the least upper bound. And for that, what do I need to prove first? I need to prove that the LUB of the set exists. And then Xn converges to LUB of A. So what does the LUB property say? When can I say that least upper bound of a set exists? The set should be non-empty in R and bounded above in R. So we'll try to prove both of these things. First, I'm going to prove the non-emptiness. I'm taking an delta greater than 0. You can also take epsilon. Since I've used epsilon before, I've taken delta to avoid the confusion. I've taken a delta greater than 0 and I know that xn is Cauchy. What does that mean? For all k greater than or equal to n, xk will be inside this interval. So can you see something from here? For infinitely many k, xk is greater than this value. And how have I defined my set A to be? A value will be inside that set if infinitely many terms of the sequence are greater than that particular value. So what can we conclude? Can you see an element that belongs to the set? It will be xn minus delta, right? So what have I just shown? I have shown that the set is non-empty. Now, is this the only element that belongs to the set? That is not relevant to our proof, but you can think about it. There will be several other elements too. If I take any n1 greater than n, even then all these elements will belong to the set. Now I need to prove that the set is bounded above. And for that, I'm making a claim. I'm claiming that xn plus delta is an upper bound of the set. So how can I prove that? I'll try to prove it using contradiction. Suppose this statement is false. Suppose A is not bounded above by xn plus delta. So what does not bounded above mean? There will be an element in the set that is greater than xn plus delta. And what does that mean? Look at here. An element x is greater than xn plus delta. And since x belongs to the set A, what can I say about x? Infinitely many terms of the sequence A are greater than x. So you know xn plus delta less than x and x is less than xk. What can you conclude? Xn plus delta is less than xk. For how many k? For infinitely many k. So do you see a contradiction here? You see a contradiction to something that we have proved before. Can look here. There is something that we proved here. Look at this fact too. If xk is greater than or equal to xn plus epsilon, then how many values can k take? K can take only finitely many values, 1 to n minus 1. But what have we shown here? We have shown that k takes infinitely many values. So that is a contradiction, right? So what can you conclude? A is bounded above by xn plus delta. Now I have shown that the set is non-empty and bounded above. So by LUB property, the least upper bound of the set exists. And I'm calling the least upper bound as L. Now what do I have to show? I have to show that xn converges to L. In order to prove this, what do I have to estimate?
Another, just a gentle reminder about the time. Okay, you may continue.
Okay, ma'am. I need to show xn converges to L. And in order to prove that, do you know what we have to estimate? Mod xn minus L. And we know how to estimate mod xn minus xn. And from that, we need to estimate mod xn minus L. So can you see how to do that? We'll again use the Correlate trick. But for that, I need to estimate mod capital X capital N minus L2. If I know that one also, then I can estimate mod xn minus L. So first, I'm trying to estimate mod X capital N minus L. What I have just shown, I shown that the set was non-empty and the element I chose was xn minus epsilon belong to A. And I know that L is an upper bound of A. It's the least upper bound, but I need only the upper bound part here. So what does that mean? Xn minus epsilon will be less than or equal to L. And I know that L is the least upper bound and xn plus epsilon was an upper bound. So what does that mean? L will be less than or equal to xn plus epsilon. What can you conclude? L will belong to this interval xn minus epsilon, xn plus epsilon. So that means mod xn minus L will be less than or equal to epsilon. So I know mod xn minus xn and mod xn minus L. Now I can easily estimate mod xn minus L. What is mod xn minus L? Using triangle inequality, I can represent it as mod xn minus xn plus mod xn minus L. And what are these two values? Both are less than epsilon. So the entire thing is less than 2 epsilon. So I have shown that mod xn minus L is less than 2 epsilon. What does this mean? Xn converges to L. So I have shown that if a real sequence xn is Cauchy, then it is convergent. Now, some examples related to non-Cauchy sequences. I know what a Cauchy sequence is. So what does it mean to say that a sequence is not Cauchy? For some epsilon that I take, corresponding to that, for whatever stage n I take, there will be an m and n such that mod xn minus xn will be greater than or equal to epsilon. For example, minus 1 raised to n. Can you see why this sequence is not Cauchy? The terms, you know what the terms are. Minus 1, 1, minus 1, 1. It goes on like that. So what will be mod xn plus 1 minus xn? I'll just give a strategy to prove this. It will always be 2, right? since it will be 1 minus minus 1 or minus 1 minus 1. Anyway, it will be 2. So suppose I take epsilon equal to 1. What happens then? No matter whatever capital N I take, if I take N as 100 or 1000 or 1 lakh, after that stage, every time mod xn plus 1 minus xn will be equal to 2. So mod xn plus 1 minus xn is greater than epsilon in this case. Therefore, this is not Cauchy. I can conclude something from this. If mod xn minus xn takes finitely many values, they should be non-zero. If all of them are 0, it will be Cauchy. But if they are non-zero, then xn is not Cauchy. This is one way in which you can construct a non-Cauchy sequence. You can take xn in such a way that mod xn minus xn will be finitely many values. Example, you can take xn equal to 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or something like that, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. All of these will not be Cauchy. But these are not the only non-Cauchy sequences. You can also take sequences that whose terms keep increasing. For example, xn equal to n. The idea is xn minus xn should not converge to 0. Then the sequence will be non-Cauchy. So some applications of this Cauchy sequence, this Cauchy completeness can be extended to any field, not just in R. So whenever I want to show that a field is complete, I can show that every Cauchy sequence in that field will converge to an element in that field. This can also be used in metric space, but the only difference is in metric space, we use the particular distance. What kind of distance is defined in that metric space, we'll use that instead of mod xn minus x. So you can go through this. Once you learn metric space, you can see that whether those are Cauchy or not. So that is the end of my seminar. I hope you have understood. Thank you.
Anyone, any questions? Audience?
Okay, Anagha, do you have any more examples of non-Cauchy sequences? Like any other strategy or any particular examples?
So this was the one that I took.
Okay, no problem. And any example of a Cauchy sequence?
Xn equal to 1 by n.
And why it is Cauchy or where it converges?
Because if we take mod xn minus xn, I can write it as 1 by m minus 1 by n. So using triangle inequality, this will be less than or equal to mod 1 by m plus mod 1 by n. So both of them are less than epsilon. So this entire thing becomes less than 2 epsilon.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Anagha, I mean, okay, you have given a proof to us, but I think if we have just proved at first that Cauchy, every Cauchy sequence is bounded, and so we can find a, subsequence of the Cauchy sequence of the given Cauchy sequence, and we can just take the limit of that subsequence, right? And then we can prove using the Curry-Leaf method.
Yes, that is also another. Okay, continue.
So, so I think in that way, the finding the limit would be easier, wouldn't it?
Yes, that is another way to prove, but what I have given is the most elementary proof. You can also use that method, but you'll need more number of concepts. You need to show Cauchy implies bounded, and if bounded, then the every monotone subsequence will also be bounded, so it will be convergent. and the entire sequence will be convergent. You are making use of a lot of concepts, but here the only thing that you require is
No, I
the
am not
LUB
using
property.
No, I'm not using monotone sequences. I'm just using that every bounded sequence has a subsequence, convergent subsequence.
Yes, and you're proving that you need monotonicity also, right? Because every Cauchy sequence, the subsequence is bounded and monotonic, so the subsequence is convergent. That is how you prove this thing, right? If you are
Yeah.
using that concept.
Yeah. But we can
So you
just
can prove it.
we can just use the Bolzano-Weierstrass theorem. But okay, I got your point. So you just use something that use the least number of theorems.
Yes. We just have, I need LUB property here. You can also use that, but this is the most elementary way to prove it without making use of any other concept.
Okay.
Also in this example where you are saying mod of xn minus xm takes only finitely many values, it can include the case of eventually constant sequences also, no? If you have an eventually constant sequence, still this will only be finite.
Then it will be 0, uncle.
So are you talking about eventually, I mean, are you taking for any n and m, this set of all
No.
mod xn minus xm, or
After a stage n, m and n greater than or equal to n.
okay, so after
Not
a
for
stage you are
any.
saying if mod xn minus xm takes finitely many values, like that.
Yes, non-zero values. If all of them are 0, then it will be Cauchy. Non-zero values, finitely. Then
Okay,
it
so
won't
that
be
after
Cauchy.
a stage is the point. Okay, right.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions? Shall we move to the next speaker then?
Yes, we move on. Thank you, Anaga.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Anaga.